Henry Cross's wood carving video tutorials. The first video tutorial that I'm going to attempt to do is to carve a Santa Claus ornament. And you can see it right here. I use a piece of 3/4 or piece of triangular shaped basswood, approximately 2 inches wide and 4 to 6, 7 inches long, depending on what kind of beard I want to put on my Santa Claus. I'm going to hold this out a little bit closer so you can see. It makes a good looking Santa Claus. Got a good looking profile. He's got a big nose. Got a lot of whiskers. And this is going to be done in probably 10 to 15 separate 10-minute parts or so. You need to be patient with me. I'm learning how to do this, and it's going to take me a while to produce these videos, but I'll be putting them up on my blog and on YouTube just as soon as I've got them. Here in a minute we're going to start talking about the properties of how to lay out a face and some of the things that you need to know, and I'll probably include a slide that will have those. I'll talk about the tools that we're going to use and the kind of things that you need to have to do this. This is probably not a tutorial for a beginner who has not carved very much, but I'm going to try to do it in enough detail that even if you are a beginner, you ought to be able to sit down and look at this video and come up with a fairly decent face. So just stay tuned, and we'll get this going just as soon as I can. Thank you. Okay, now we're ready to talk about some face proportions and how to lay out a face. And I want you to notice the first thing about this Santa Claus I'm holding is how wide his nose is and the length. And the reason why is I use the length of the nose to lay out the face. So I make a mark for the bottom of the nose and a mark for the brow, and that gives me 1/3 of the face. I use the rule of thirds, and what that says is if I know this distance, then I can take that, and that's 1/3 of the face. Okay, it'll be 1/3 from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. And the mouth is located basically right in the middle in between them. And then from the center of the brow up to the hairline is 1/3. And that gives me pretty much the length of the face. Okay. Then next what I do is I decide on how wide the nose is going to be. Now on a realistic carving, the nose is probably not going to be most of the times as wide as this nose is here. And that can be important because one of the things we use is, one of the critical measurements is that the eye width is basically the same as the nose. Now on a Santa Claus or a wood spirit, I make a big wide nose a lot of times, so my eye is not going to be quite as wide. Another thing, once we've located the side of the nose, generally speaking, the inside corner of the eye is going to line up with the outside corner of the nose right here. And if we know the width of the eye, we can find the width of the face, the widest part of the face. And what we do there is, another general term and general rule we use is a human face is 4.5 to 5 eyes wide. So once I've decided how wide my nose is, then I can decide how wide my eye is, and I can locate the width of the face. And the way you do that is, if this eye lined up with this nose, then you would have a 1 eye width between here and here. Between the eyes would be 1 eye, then you have 2 eyes, 3 eyes, then you add anywhere from a 1/2 of an eye on each side to 1 full eye on each side, and that gives you the width of the face. Now another way that I use to locate the width of the face a lot of times, since I know the length, I can take 3/4 of whatever that is, and that will also work out pretty good on the width. Now one other thing to note is the width of the face, the widest part of the face is actually right here underneath the eye. And then generally it'll narrow down a little bit on the bottom, narrow down a little bit on the top. Okay. Another thing you need to know is if you could see this whole mouth, which you can't, the width of the mouth is basically whatever width is from center line to center line of the eye. Alright? Another thing about the brow right here is that from the center of the eye to the center of the eye, this area right here is generally flat. Then it rolls off into the side of the face. Now, one other thing is if you turn this from the side and look at it in profile, you'll be able to see the eye from the side. Now, part of the reason for that is underneath the brow, this angle right here is 45 degrees. And you need to think about that. That's one of the reasons why I use a 45-degree block to start with. It just saves you from having to remove a lot of wood. Now, if we look at this profile, there's also some things to note here. And one of the first things to note is the nose. You'll notice here the nose is hanging half off the face and half into the face. One of the things that beginning carvers do a lot of times is they'll have that nose just basically sticking all the way off the face. Okay, another thing to note is the angle here of the nose, because whatever angle that is, generally the brow is going to be at the same angle. Now, that's not always true. Women usually have a flatter forehead, and some men do too. But these are general rules for carving faces. Now, if you'll follow these rules, you can lay out a face just like I did here, and you'll keep it in pretty much the right proportions to look good. Okay, now we're getting ready to lay out the face, and you'll notice this block that I'm using is a triangular shaped block. It was originally a square block that was about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and I split it in half on my bandsaw. And this is what I use to carve my Santa type ornaments. The first thing that I do is I locate a point about center ways on the block, and usually I drop down just a little bit lower, although on this one I won't. And what this line is the bottom of the nose. Okay? And then you can also notice that this is the same block that I used to carve this one out of. Alright, then I'm going to come up approximately about 1/2 inch and make me another mark here, like so. And what this is this would be the Santa's brow line, this point right here. We're locating this point and this point right here. And that gives me the basic setup to start laying out my face. Once I know the length of the nose, I can actually determine the whole length of his face. And by what I mean by that is you use the rule of thirds. In other words, the nose is 1/3, and from the brow to actually where the hairline would be is 1/3, and from the bottom of the nose to where the bottom of the chin would be is also 1/3. So that you can take a set of dividers, or you can just measure it with a ruler if you wanted to, and you can basically get the proper dimensions that way. Okay, now what I usually do from here is I go ahead and cut these two lines, and I do that, and that locates my nose, and I base everything else off the nose. And as we go through the video, I will explain to you why.